Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Guitar Temple. I hope you are doing well indeed. So, is it a New Year's resolution? A new year? Or is this a permanent situation? Your guitar playing should be a permanent fixture in your life. If that's what you really want to be, not the dabbler. Even if you're a beginner, the mental attitude should be, this is a forever swim. I'm going all the way, even if it takes me 30 years. It makes no difference. I will keep on keeping on. I will persist until something happens. I will push until something happens. Advancement comes to the one who is prepared at the time that they are in need of somebody. So start now for later. Start your arpeggio study now. Say, okay, I'm going to do my triads, my first note, my third note, my fifth note of a scale to create my triad, to create my chords. I will understand this and I will go forward. If you're an absolute grand master, who did I speak to in the last hour to have gotten myself the gig with Shania Twain, or with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, or with whoever it might be? So, you got to take an action, take the bull by the horns, and know that I'm here at point A, and I'm going to die at point B. In between point A and point B, I will kick maximum ass. I'm here, I'm looking to go there, and nothing will stop me. You ask yourself, is this right? If it is, go ahead and do it. Implement. Release all sense of burden, struggle, and fear. Forgive everybody, and just be evenly yoked with the people around you that want you to be who you are. And be happy. If you're happy, you're winning. If you're one of the best players in the world and you off yourself, I don't think you were happy. So to be happy is to win. You're winning the ball game. You're going towards who you're supposed to be. You personally, not what they said that you should be. All right? It's who you want to be and who you want to become, of course. So, I just wanted to say hello to you and say Happy New Year. Hope to see you here for the rest of the year. All right, take care. Welcome back to the Guitar Temple. Glad you're here on this beautiful foggy day in the year 2022. Holy cow, 2022 already. I was born in the 50s. It was a really good year, like a fine wine. Who are the greatest guitar builders on earth? Is it Cort? Is it Waghorn? Is it Kiesel? Is it Suhr guitars? Yamaha? Ibanez? Who's the top dog? Let's take a look at some of the best builders in the world. Are old guitars better than new guitars? Woo. There's a can of worms for you. Some people are staunch believers. That's it. It's got to be 25 years old if it's going to be any good. But see, with me, it's state-of-the-art, brand spanking new 2022 guitars. State-of-the-art. That's what I like. I like new. How about yourself? You like the older stuff better? Could be. And that's great. I probably agree with you on that specific guitar. But today, let's take a look at some of the best guitar builders in the world.
Do you actually play all these, or?
I play them and I cherish them. Mm-hmm. This is at the top of the heap right here. There's no question about it. Look at the flame on that one.
Yes.
Look, it's quite unbelievable. This one is just, it's perfect. 1959. You know, it just, you can listen.
How much is
Just
this?
listen for a minute. The sustain, listen to it.
I'm not hearing anything.
You would, though, if it were playing, because
Yeah.
it really, it's famous for its sustain. I mean, you can just hold it.
Well, I mean, so you'd have to play.
You can go and have a bite. No, you still be hearing that. And I can play without all the muck.
You can run anywhere on stage with that.
Oh, this is special too. See, look, see, still got the old tagger on it. See, never even played it. See?
You just bought it?
Don't touch it. Don't
well,
touch it.
I wasn't going to touch it.
No, don't touch it.
I was just pointing at it.
Well, don't point even.
Don't even point?
No, it can't be played. Never. I mean,
Can I look at it?
No, you've seen
Don't
enough
look
of
at
that
it.
one. This is a top to, you know, what we use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see,
Yeah.
the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11,
Oh, I see.
11,
And most of
11,
the
and then
amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder.
Since 1973, Cort has been producing quality guitars that are sold around the world. Over that time, their guitar production methods have evolved. However, today, as it did over 4 decades ago, a great guitar always starts with great wood. At Cort Guitars, the first step in the production process is drying the wood to be used in each instrument. After a highly regulated kiln drying, Cort stores the wood for over a year to assure proper climate acclimation. Quality control inspectors check the progress to determine when the wood is ready to be utilized in production. Next, the wood is cut to size, preparing it to start its long transformation into a great sounding guitar. Many models feature special exotic wood tops that are glued on at this early phase. Cort uses specialized machinery to apply the proper pressure to assure a tight bond. On neck-through body models, the body wings are adhered to the necks using the same method.
Factory fact: the Cort electric guitar factory has over 2,000 employees. A majority of the factory team has been building guitars for 10 years or more.
Cort uses modern technology in a careful blend with traditional guitar building skills to produce its guitars. After the Cort R&D team hand designs a model, it is meticulously plotted, allowing the handcrafted personality of the initial creation to be captured and replicated consistently using computer-aided equipment. The model shape and elaborate contours of the bodies are crafted using a specially adapted CNC machine. Initially, the body shape is cut out starting with the back of the guitar. Then, other areas like the belly cut and the electronics cavity are cut. The body is then flipped, and the top area is cut to shape. This process uses up to 8 different cutting tools.
Factory fact: between this factory and their acoustic guitar factory, Cort has a production capacity of over 1 million guitars per year, making them one of the largest producers of guitars in the world.
Fingerboards on Cort guitars feature various inlay options ranging from simple to ornate. In each case, the process starts with the precision cutting of the fingerboard. This is done using specially designed compact CNC machines for maximum accuracy. While many other factories purchase generic inlay designs from an outside supplier, Cort uses inlay materials ranging from abalone and mother of pearl to plastic and exotic woods. These materials are laser cut right here in the factory. Another important part of the fingerboard preparation is cutting the fret slots. Perfect fret position is critical for an instrument's performance and tuning stability. This machine, along with a highly skilled craftsman, ensures an exact result. With a single pass, it cuts all the slots, including the perfect position for the nut. The next step is the installation of the inlays. This meticulous process is done by hand by some of Cort's most experienced workers. Now, the fingerboard is ready to be installed on the neck. It is carefully positioned, clamped, and allowed to bond fully. The correct installation of the frets are a very important part of the guitar production process. This 3-step process begins with the initial installation of the frets. Then, the frets are machine pressed for maximum stability. Finally, a highly trained member of the Cort team inspects each fret to assure that it is fully seated and fine-tunes as needed with hand hammering.
Factory fact: each guitar must pass 10 different detailed inspection processes, conducted by one of 15 quality control supervisors.
Now that the vital initial construction is complete, the guitars move into the finishing process. This starts with a craftsman sanding the final shaping of the guitar's body and neck. This process uses a combination of traditional equipment, new technologies, and handcrafting. Once again, at this point, additional quality control steps are taken before the instruments are ready for painting. For many guitars, the next step is hand staining. This process is especially important on models with exotic wood tops, as it will accentuate the look of the special woods, like flamed and quilted maple. For other colors, the painting process includes a visit to the paint booth. This is where highly experienced painters will apply various colors, including hand-painted sunburst finishes. The next few steps is the application of clear coat. This brings us to one of the most impressive areas in the Cort factory. Here, you will see hundreds of gorgeous guitars moving on a carefully timed conveyor. This high-tech painting department uses electrostatic technology to assure an even, durable finish while allowing it to be as thin as possible. This thinner finish is important to allowing the guitar to sound its best while also looking its best. After each guitar is allowed to fully dry, it is moved into the buffing department. The first step is to hand sand the guitars using a very fine sandpaper. This is the start of a process designed to maximize the look of the final finish. Next, the guitars pass through an automated buffing machine. Moving towards a flat and flawless finish, the guitar is inspected, then moved along to the hand buffing area, where several stages of buffing are done as the guitar starts to achieve its full potential.
Factory fact: some guitars take 45 days or more to go through the production at the Cort Electric Guitar Factory.
Because quality matters, Cort has its own pickup shop, where a majority of the pickups used in Cort guitars are produced. By producing them in-house instead of outsourcing like so many others do, they can control the sound and more accurately match their pickup specs with the model that they will be applied to. Many factors impact a pickup's sound, including the number of winds, wire used, and magnet selection. Another critical sonic step is a process called potting. In this process, a pickup is submerged in wax to provide important isolation. The amount of time and pressure used in this process impacts the sound and performance of the pickups. Cort personally manages each and every step of the pickup production process.
Factory fact: pickups receive up to 9,000 winds of the appropriate pickup wire to achieve the desired sound.
Each guitar receives additional detailed attention as it moves towards the final steps. The frets are leveled, dressed, and polished to assure great playability. Then the guitar moves into the assembly department. Premium Cort guitars utilize a cellular assembly methodology, meaning that one highly trained technician will handle all assembly steps for one guitar. With this method, the worker takes full ownership of the final building process on that guitar. After assembly, each guitar will go through two different inspection processes. The first includes an in-depth setup, making sure that everything works correctly and that the instrument plays well. The second focuses on inspecting all aspects of the instrument. From the careful selection and treatment of the wood, to a balance of traditional building, computer-guided accuracy, and hand craftsmanship, Cort Guitars delivers on a factory that rocks.
Hi, I'm Jack Higginbotham. We are at the PRS factory in Stevensville, Maryland on the Eastern Shore, and today we're going to have a factory tour. Guitar making is comprised of materials, designed, and processes, and in rough cut, that's where we compile all of our materials. These materials form the foundation of the guitar. It creates the sound of the guitar from the woodworking point of view. Once we have these materials in-house, it's up to us to nurture them and to get everything we can out of this wood to make the very best guitar that we can. And that starts with the drying process. You have to be very careful with the drying of maple because curly maple is very sensitive and it actually can be easily damaged if you don't dry the wood correctly. So we start with an air drying process where the wood is book matched. Book matching is the process where we take a block of wood and bandsaw it in half on our horizontal mill, and it folds out just like the pages on a book. The wood is then put on a pallet and separated by stickers, just pieces of wood that separate them from each other so that air can flow between them and slowly dry the moisture off of the wood. Once we get that moisture content down to a reasonable level, we're then able to put the wood in our drying rooms where we have forced hot air that circulates in the room and again just slowly works the moisture out of the wood and gets it down to below what our humidity levels are in our factory. How well you dry that wood is directly correlated to how well that guitar is going to vibrate. It also has a direct correlation to how it will stay in tune. Because if you get that moisture out, you lock it down and that guitar becomes very stable. You still have to make sure you've got a quality bridge, quality tuner, a quality setup, that the nut is cut correctly out of the right materials. All of those things still can ruin a guitar easily, but you don't stand a chance of having a guitar that stays in tune if you don't have a stable platform. We divide our materials basically into two groups. We have our core materials and we have our S2 bolt-on materials. Inside of both of these groups, we use a grading process. So when you look through the factory and you see stacks of curly maple with different colors on the end of them, and it's basically that way so that we can quickly build a schedule, put our guitars together, and make guitars each day based upon the demand of the customers. Before we actually start building a guitar, there's a supporting cell, which is the inlay and fretboard cell. This is a cell that actually feeds virtually every aspect of the business. It starts with thickness sanding the material. So we take that wood that's out of our oven, we acclimate it in our wood shop, then we run it through our thickness sander and get it to the proper thickness of a final fretboard. Once the fretboard is thickness sanded, we take it to a CNC machine where we'll cut the outline of the guitar, and then we'll route the holes for the bird inlays or whatever the inlay is that's in that fretboard. The peghead veneer is also thickness sanded, and then it goes over to our CNC machine where we'll cut the perimeter, we'll cut the negative for the signature and the headstock, and then we'll cut the holes for the tuning pegs to go through. The fretboard that's also routed, and then the peghead veneer that is routed, then go to be inlaid. At inlay, we have a lot of options. We have cases of inlay material here that span many years. So we have the ability to mix and match and come up with a lot of fresh designs and ideas just based on what we've done in the past. Once we've selected that inlay material, we take the fretboard and we carefully glue each bird in place. We glue the signature into the peghead veneer. That's cured, and then we have a finished fretboard and peghead veneer set that's ready for manufacturing. So now we have our wood selected, and we have a fretboard, and we need a neck. Making a neck has always been a very fascinating process to me because it's a complicated thing, and if you get it right, it's really right, and if you don't get it right, it can go wrong in several different ways. It's a precision subcomponent of making a guitar. S2, bolt-on, and core all have slightly different processes, but they really share the same goal. And the goal is to have that good neck. It has to be stable, it has to be tonal, It has to be generally very dense and very resonant. This neck process is something that I did in the 80s, and I really grew to love it. So S2 was created at a time that we needed to learn how to make a different price point, and we were looking to bring a new player into the PRS family. We all agreed that many things could change, but the thing we would not compromise on would be the integrity of the instrument based upon the neck, which is really at the heart of things. It takes about 1 month to make a core neck from start to finish. S2 and bolt-on take a fraction of the time because it's closer to the finished dimension. The neck blank itself is 4/4 instead of 12/4, so you're much closer to your final dimension, therefore you bypass a lot of the time. The way we're able to use a 4/4 neck blank instead of a 12/4 is with a very accurate cut that scarfs the headstock. So you make your very accurate cut on a very precise chop box, basically. You finish that off with a CNC operation and end up with 2 perfectly mating parts that, when flipped over and joined together, form our perfect headstock angle. The end of that neck blank is then cut off and is eventually glued to the bottom of the neck, and that forms the heel and where the neck pickup is going to rest upon. Once the headstock is scarfed and the heel is applied, the rest of the process is very similar between core, bolt-on, and S2 series. We slot the neck for a truss rod, install a double action truss rod. We then glue in a truss rod slot insert. We clamp that truss rod slot insert in the same fixtures that we ultimately will clamp the fretboard to the neck. When it sets, we remove it, we'll fly cut the surface, put our tooling holes in for the fretboard, and continue on the neck manufacturing process. After the fretboard and the neck have been glued together, we then go on to our carve program. Once the neck is carved, then we're ready to round, level, and fret. The rounding of the fretboard is first done on a CNC machine. From there on out comes a lot of handwork. The first stop on the handwork is the radius and leveling of the fretboard. This is used on an aluminum jig with a highly skilled craftsperson that will ensure that we have a perfect radius that's very consistent from the nut to the heel, and we also have a perfectly level fretboard from the nut to the heel. And once we have that perfect platform, then we go on to fretting. Fretting done perfectly will allow us to put a bead of glue in each fret slot, press in each fret perfectly consistent so that when we're finished with a very flat fretboard, radiused very well, we then have frets that are pressed in very equally. And by the time we go to level the frets in our finish process, there's very little material that we need to remove to make sure that that playing surface is absolutely perfect. Since the beginning of the company, we've been very careful to think about what are the applications that a machine should be used in and what are the operations that a skilled craftsman should be responsible for. In general, a machine can be used for very repetitive processes, but a craftsperson is absolutely essential in making sure that when you put your hands on that neck, it feels perfect, it's home, it's comfortable. That takes a person that understands what the guitar player wants to feel and can get that neck to that spot. We do a lot of work with the guitar by hand in the sanding operations. When compared to a neck, a body is a fairly simple thing to make. We start with a back and a book match top, and we laminate them together in our laminating press. The press is at a pressure between 6,500 pounds and about 7,500 pounds. So imagine a Chevrolet Suburban sitting on top of each of these stacks of bodies. That's about the downforce that we're using on these guitars. Some guitars are solid body guitars. They bypass that laminating process and they have no maple top, so it doesn't go through the book match. They simply are billets of wood that are glued together, joined, and planed. Then they're ready for their bandsaw cut, tooling holes, and ready for the CNC. The CNC operations for S2, CE, and Core are all very, very similar, except for the programs. We use a beveled carve for our S2 bodies. We use a shallow violin carve for our CE bolt-ons, and we use a contoured carve for the Silver Sky. Obviously, we use our traditional violin carve for our Core guitars. The first cuts on the CNC are what we call back cuts. The body is put in a fixture upside down, located by the tooling holes that we just drilled. The outside perimeter of the body is shaped. The belly carve is shaped. The electronics cavity is routed. If there is a tremolo cavity, that'll be routed here. The recesses for the back plates, and then the radius for the roundover on the back edge. The second CNC machine does all of our top cuts. It's going to take care of our violin carve, our neck pocket, pickup holes, tremolo through holes, the divots for the controls, or the wells for a stop tail guitar. That's all done on this second machine. When the body comes out of the CNC machine, the first step is to sand the flat surfaces, which we use a semi-automated panel sander that helps maintain a flat surface on both the top and on the back of the guitar. After the panel sander, we're basically sanding a body that's off of a CNC carving machine that has mill marks in it into a finished surface that's ready for staining. There's a couple of things that we're achieving when we're sanding a guitar body. First of all, it has to be the right shape. Secondly, it has to be absolutely scratch-free, because that's our challenge to ourselves, is to be able to look at a stained guitar and say that there are no defects or scratches or anything to detract from the beauty of the stain and the maple that's on the guitar. One of the keys of having a very good guitar is to have a very thin, very hard finish, and the requirement of that being able to be possible is the wood to be absolutely flat and true. Neck body assembly, or NBA, is where we make sure that it has a snug, tight fit between the neck and the body. The neck angle is struck so that we have the proper height on the tremolo or the stop tail. And we make sure that the neck and the bridge position line up accurately with our string gauges. Once the neck and the body are clamped, glue squeezes out of the neck joint, and we spend a lot of time making sure that we clean up not just what's on the surface, but we also have to be very careful to get any glue that has soaked into the pores of the wood, because this is going to show up inside of the staining operation and inside of the finish operations. Once the body and the neck are glued together, we basically have a finished guitar, and we're basically finished with the wood shop. In 1985, when we started the business, largely the electric guitar market was opaque colors, a lot of bright neons, really flashy guitars. And we came in and said, our signature is going to be curly maple, classic colors, but vibrant colors, and guitars that the beauty of the wood is part of what it is that's drawing you into the instrument. We started out the company with 3 colors. There was a vintage yellow, a scarlet red, and a royal blue. But over time, we've evolved those colors and those processes to be literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of colors. And a lot of creativity has gone into the vision of those colors and executing those colors. In a way, it culminates with what we started doing with our stain fades. After our stain process, we go to grain filling. We use a paste grain filler that's rubbed into the wood and then wiped off, which takes the open pores of the wood and fills them in, so you have a flat surface to build your base coat upon. After grain fill, we prep the guitar, tape off the fretboard, and the guitar is ready for base coat operations. What most people think of with finish is a protective surface. We agree with that. We're trying to protect the guitar, but more than anything, we think of it as a tonal process. Finish has a lot to do with what the guitar is going to sound like. You can kill a guitar by coating it with something that is very thick and not very hard and wrapping the outside of it with it. And that is something that we're very, very careful inside of our company to make sure we have very thin finishes, very hard finishes, and to make sure that the beauty of the guitar all comes through very clear finishes. From a very 30,000 foot point of view, a guitar should look good, feel good, and sound good, and finish is surprisingly a major part of executing those three fundamentals. When we apply our base coat, it's 1.5 human hairs thick. It's about 6/1000ths of an inch. Not much material on there to level off, so it has to be a perfect substrate. And base coat is one of the places where we believe a machine is capable of doing the job more consistently and accurately than a human, because the goal of base coat is purely to put on a very thin, very even, very concise amount of material on the instrument. Just like a CNC machine, a robot is capable of doing this day in and day out exactly the same. After we sprayed the base coat, the guitar dries and is cured. After a couple of days, we sand the guitar body, level the surface, and it goes to spray prep. If a guitar has a black back or a tone back or a sunburst, we go into our color coding operations. A perfect sunburst is an art form, and it takes an artist to apply the sunburst on our guitars. Everybody does it a little bit differently. You can look at our guitars over the years and we can actually tell who the sprayer was that put on a particular sunburst because it's almost like a fingerprint. At the end of the color coding process, if we see a spot that may be a little bit light or needs a little bit of a touch-up, we can go to our touch-up booth and skillfully apply matching finish to even out that back or that neck. After color coding, we're ready for top coat. Very carefully, by hand, a sprayer manually sprays the coat onto the guitar, and it takes a very highly skilled craftsperson to apply the finish in the way that we need it sprayed in order to achieve really what is the look, the feel, and the sound of the instrument. By the time we've finished with our spray operations, the total thickness on our guitars is less than 2 human hairs thick. We've taken material and put it on, we've sanded it off, we've blocked the guitar, we've leveled it at base coat, and then we've done it at top coat. And at the very end of the process, we want to take that fretboard and essentially make it feel comfortable and familiar and like a guitar you've played all your life and it just came out of a case. We do that at fret level. This is also where we level the frets on our core guitars using straight sticks and make sure that the frets are absolutely level with each other. After the frets are leveled, then the top coat will be machine sanded and then hand sanded. The guitar will be inspected carefully and then go into our buffing room. When the guitar comes out of the buffing room, it's carefully critiqued to make sure there's no flaws and no issues in the guitar. If we see anything at this point of the process, the guitar can go back a step and be corrected, or it can be addressed there at the bench. We call this turnaround. We call it turnaround because in the beginning of the business, we only had one rack for the guitars coming out of the buffing room. If the guitar wasn't ready for final assembly, it faced towards the buffing room. When the guitar was ready for final assembly, we turned it around and it faced the final assembly room, so we just started calling it turnaround, and that stuck. Our bolt-on guitars are finished in a different way. Obviously, the neck is not in the body yet, so the body is sprayed separately and the neck is sprayed separately. They go through the sanding operation, they go through the buffing operation identically, but the neck and the body are mated together after the buffing process, where we find the matching pair, we check the neck angle, we screw the neck and the body together, and then the guitar is ready for the turnaround process. This is one of our major checkpoints for quality assurance. When the guitar is met with their approval, it goes into a rack and a guitar builder can select that guitar and start building it. But before we can make that guitar, we have to go to the electronics room. When we come into the electronics room, what we're really doing is coming into a room full of solutions. When Paul started out in the guitar world, he was repairing instruments. And as he was repairing those instruments, he was seeing why things broke or why things weren't performing the way that the guitarist wanted it to perform. And he was coming up with solutions to those problems. Ultimately, the solutions to many of those problems led to the design of many of the proprietary parts that we use. Whether it's our locking tuning pegs, our patented tremolo bridge, the Paul's guitar bridge with brass inserts, the pickups that we use, every part that's on this guitar isn't unique for the sake of being unique. It's unique because we feel like it's the best way that particular part can be designed and made with the materials that work best for that particular guitar. They're made to be high performance in nature, and in the right combination on each of the individual models, they come together to finish off the personality of that instrument. As we exit the electronics room, we go into assembly where the room is divided into two sections. One section for pre-assembly and one section for final setup. Final assembly is where all of those components match up with the guitar and the guitar is born. Again, going back to Paul's history, I think what sets us apart to a degree within the industry is the quality of our setups. In addition to being a good repair guy and a great guitar builder, Paul was very well known for his setups, and he has very exacting standards for those setups. What this room has is the ability to take what he does at a very craftsman level, making a guitar feel very special and perfect, and scaling that to the manufacturing process. After the guitar is finished, the final assembler will fill out the hang tag, sign his name on it, write the specifics of the guitar on it, and date the guitar, and then the guitar goes into our quality assurance final inspection. We haven't talked a whole lot about quality control, but everywhere that we have gone on this tour, there have been elements of quality assurance and quality control. All through the manufacturing of the guitar, you'll also see people signing their initials in a guitar. We've done this since the beginning of the company. At PRS today, that tradition continues, but there are many more signatures because the guitars are focused on in individual areas much more carefully than they were 35 years ago. And when that guitar is signed off to go from one stage to another, the person responsible for saying that guitar is good puts their initials in the guitar. At final inspection, the guitar is play tested, make sure that everything about that guitar is performing the way that we want it to perform. At final casing, we're making sure the guitar looks perfect, has all the appropriate accessories with the guitar. Then the case is closed. The guitar goes into a box, it goes into our warehouse, and is preparing to go out to a customer. But there's one more stop along the way. On Friday mornings, we go into our warehouse and we randomly select the guitars that are preparing to be shipped. We pull those out of the shipments, we take them to our conference room, where our manufacturing managers and quality assurance come together and review the guitars to see where we stand on a quality level inside of the company. And generally speaking, we don't find problems with the guitars, but what we do have is an opportunity to think about how we can improve the processes or improve the guitars, and sometimes we'll even come up with ideas for new guitars for the future inside of this meeting.
I hope some of you will decide to come to PRS and actually experience this firsthand. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for taking our factory tour. And thank you most of all for being a part of the PRS family. We hope to see you soon.
What's going on, guys? Jeff Kiesel, Kiesel Guitars. Today I'm here to talk to you guys about roasted maple. I get a lot of questions, what's my favorite neck wood? What's roasted maple like? Should I get roasted maple? So, the benefits of roasted maple, let's talk about those. So by having a roasted maple neck or fretboard, you have a piece of wood that has not only been kiln dried, so we have a special wood oven that the wood goes into. We can fit about 30 neck blanks in there at a time. And the wood is timed. It slowly goes up to the right temperature, stays at that temperature for a set time, and then cools off of a period of about a full day. And when we do that, you get this beautiful caramelization. They can be lighter, they can be medium like this, and they can even be darker. It really depends on how much sugar is in the wood. And you end up with this beautiful neck that has the benefits of not growing or shrinking when moisture is in the air. So if you're in a climate that is very kind of inconsistent, let's say you're in the desert and it can be really, really dry, and then you can have some rainy months and then all the moisture is in the air, you'd be a good candidate for one of these necks. So I would say if you're in an area where you have a lot of changing humidity, I would definitely look into one of these. They have another great advantage is the feel. They feel absolutely amazing. You know, typically these are going to be a tongue-oiled product, back of the neck and the fretboard, and the feel across the back of the neck. It's hard to explain. It's a harder yet softer feel. And you also get a third benefit, which is lighter in weight. For 2020, we're stepping up the custom shop yet again. We're allowing customers to select from light, medium, or dark roast for their plain roasted necks. These will be matched to a fretboard that is similar in color. Keep in mind these are pieces of wood and there can be a variant between colors, but we're going to do the best job we can to match them up as close to the color between the fretboard and the neck. I have this beautiful Delos here. You can see this guy with the fretboard and the back of the neck. And now you could get just the fretboard because really that is the huge benefit is you have a lack of fret sprout. You know, if you're in an area where it gets really dry, sometimes your fretboard can shrink in and the fret doesn't move, right? So the fret feels like it's poking out because the fretboard is reduced in thickness and width. So that's probably your biggest advantage is the fretboard itself. And then the back of the neck, of course, just the feel and then that weight reduction. One tip for you guys that are ordering these, I always recommend to get the neck and fretboard matching and then leave the headstock a satin raw tone. If you're to put a gloss coating over it, it's going to darken up the wood and it's really going to make it look different than the fretboard. So by keeping the finish similar, the raw tone versus the tongue oil, you're going to have a similar color. I just think it looks a lot more classy too. And when we did our Delos run last year, that's how they all came standard because we feel it looks the best. All of our necks here are quarter sawn as well as the fretboards, with the exception of bird's eye maple. Let me show off both a flame and a bird's eye. You can see this beautiful flame maple. Now this is going to be a big leaf flame maple, and typically these are going to have more of a caramelized golden color. And you can see this bird's eye. Typically these are going to come in more of a golden honey brown color. And of course the regular maple, hard rock maple, and this can range from a lighter to the medium to a darker color. Really depends on how much sugar's in the wood. Everything goes through the same set time, whether it's the standard flame or the bird's eye maple. They all go through the same exact process. And again, that's after it's all been kiln dried. If you're touring, changing climates, this is definitely the way to go. Thanks for watching this video. And if you have any questions on these, feel free to call my guys.
Well, we started Knaggs Guitars in 2009. Peter and I began the company in August and started building around April. I'd already had a couple designs, Chesapeakes, the Severn and the Chop Tank, and the Patuxent here and the Potomac. And what we decided to do was come out with another line, the Influence line, which was a shorter scale, carved tops, and so I ended up designing 4 more models out of that, and which is the Cheyenne, the Chenna, the Kia, and the Kenai. And so that kind of launched the brand. We launched the brand in Germany at the Frankfurt show in 2010. And since then, we've been trying to get production up and building all the different models, all the different tiers.
I'm such a fan of workmanship. What can I say? This is gorgeous.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and all the lacquer is right. There's no seams, no nothing. The sound in the Cort is really full.
To ring, I want the guitar to sustain. You can control the sustain yourself. You can't make sustain. So that is really what we're after here. We're after the guitars to, when you strum them, they ring and they ring on and on and on, because that's when you know you're getting the different harmonic levels, because those harmonic levels interact with each other and create a ongoing sound.
So I think, yes, he's very well known.
You know, really where I came up with this idea of the color was driving into work. I looked out in the field and there was burgundy flowers out there with wheat color, you know, field behind it with white, and I was just like, you know, that'd be a cool color combination, you know. So that's kind of how I'm looking at the colors and stuff like that. I try to look at what nature's side of it is. And, you know, when you look into what nature does, there's some crazy color combinations that you would never think would work, but you look at them and go, wow, that looks really cool.
It's also very deco. Something about this color combination.
My idea was to have a lineup of models that, you know, 2 different lines, the Chesapeake line and the Influence line, that would kind of have appointments that these classic instruments have, but also with our own twist and also with improvements wherever we were able to make them.
And in the case of Stradivarius, he wanted to make instruments by himself. He wanted to control what was going on with the instrument he was building. He wanted to do it in a small shop and enjoy that solitude that you can get out of building a guitar. You know, one of my favorite things is building an acoustic and doing it with nobody else around, or even just with one other person that I'm working with, and really being able to listen for what you're doing and take your time shaving the braces, make sure that you're getting your top thickness right, all the things that you're looking to do to make the guitar ring. And to me, that's the biggest similarity. He was looking for an instrument that had a certain sound, and basically a instrument that would ring, okay? That to me is the biggest similarity.
So welcome to our tour of the Yamaha Guitar Development Custom Shop. This is really our setup and assembly room, and this is where we do all the modifications, where we do setups, repairs, and when we build a new instrument, I'll do it right here on my workbench. We got our wood storage closet, and it's pretty well humidity controlled. We're in Southern California, so it's pretty dry. We keep all the body wood here, got neck wood here, and then acoustic guitar wood here as well. And we do all sorts of different materials, and we actually specialize in this ARE process that Yamaha, you know, pioneered years and years ago. This is a really cool artificial way of aging the wood, making it sound like it's been played for many, many years. So we are always testing materials, and we'll come through here, and you know, an artist says, you know, I want a neck blank that has a certain grain, or you know, I want a quarter sawn instead of flat sawn, or I want a top, specific top, and they'll pick out, you know, whatever they like.
You can see just basic kind of buffering room here. And we set it up this way so you know, we keep all the dust and dirt and things as far away from the paint as we can. So when Raphael's done, he'll put it here in the hopper. And you see some other projects that we've been working on. We've got some Attitude necks, some cool new Pacifica necks working on. So if I come over here, I'll select my program, turn on the graphics just to see it's going to do what I tell it to. Cross our fingers and we'll let it run. Take a peek. This will take about 2 minutes. What you been up to? What are you working on?
Well, I'm working on, right now, I got a top, an acoustic guitar top on my bench, and I'm voicing, which is shaving the braces thinner in certain areas and leaving them thick in some areas to allow the top to vibrate the way we want it to make it thinner, more flexible on the edge. That generally gives you a little better bass response, something like that. I can't reveal all the secrets.
Bending all the sides and stuff, so.
This is a crucial, you gotta get the amount of glue right here because you don't want your guitar to not be adequately glued together. But you also don't want to look inside and see a whole bunch of glue squeezing out of your joints. So, the sponge just kind of helps that.
And go wild, and this is one of Andrew's guitars. This is wonderful too. This is Pau Ferro. That's really beautiful looking wood. So, you know, when things come off of the CNC machine like this, like that Pacifica you saw in the other room for Jeff Schroeder, this was one of the test bodies that we cut. This is what it looks like when it comes right off the CNC, and it has you know, some small lips and things that need to be sanded. We got to put the radius on the edges and make it all nice and clean. And what we do is we want to test things at full volume so they're not going to feed back on stage, and we want to get the artist feedback that it's sounding tonally correct.
This is maybe one of those examples when that I call this Cosmo Black. It's just kind of my take on the, I don't know, some kind of Cosmo thing, but
cosmic burst, yeah.
A cosmic burst, but you know, the deal with this, for example, this is just a generic shape, but I say like, well, binding only seems to come in black, white, and cream, right? So how can we get this different color binding, and how can we make guitars that maybe have some of those features and really cool things like that? This is another guitar for well, some of our next builds that are gonna come through, and just a nice piece of flame there with a nice tint on it.
Now this room, very similar to downstairs, is our studio area, and we'll test with Helix, we'll test with the THR, we'll test with, you know, some really nice monitors. So all the NX and you know, all the atmosphere pickups that were developed in here by Yoshi Tambara, my boss, and Sam Huang. This is a really cool area because we'll have our first conversations with artists about a custom build in here, or we'll do evaluations when I make, you know, 5, 6 prototypes. We want to hang them on the wall, make sure they look cool. We'll get people's opinions, we'll try them out. And you can see some of the custom guitars I've made over the years in here, some previous NAMM show guitars, some of my favorites get to hold on to. How about Mike Stern? This is SA15. This is one of my favorite Yamaha designs. This thing is amazing. I love this guitar.
Andy, you sound great, man. Great to see you. Everyone, this is Andy Powers. We're at the Taylor factory in El Cajon, California. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. And we've just had a factory tour here, and I want to talk to you a little about the craftsmanship that goes into making the incredible instruments that Taylor makes.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that really impressed me is Taylor, of course, is well known for high tech and the approach that you guys use to making very, very uniform and precise, in a good way, instruments that they're consistent, right?
Yeah.
But what amazed me going through the factory is how much handwork is going into these instruments and the skilled craftspeople that you have making them.
Yeah, you know, the way we've always worked as guitar makers is we want to use the process, the tool, the method that builds the best guitar.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, that means building a machine to do something consistently, like bending sides.
Mm-hmm.
We have now fully automated side bending machines that we use to form the rim of this guitar. That enables us to build a very accurate, precisely shaped guitar.
Right.
For our neck making process, we're using a lot of CNC controlled machinery to make individual cuts so that every single neck turns out with the flexing characteristic, the amount of relief, the fretwork, all of those details have to be very precise. Because if I accidentally built a good one, that means I could accidentally build a bad one.
Right.
So I don't want any of that accidental customization to happen.
Right.
I want the neck that we intend to build. It's
Mm-hmm.
got to be a good one every single time. So we build a lot of high precision tooling and a lot of automated technology to help us get those results.
Right.
Some processes, those don't automate well. So certain things they're a lot better to teach somebody how to do those. Say like putting the binding or sanding a guitar. Okay, sanding a guitar is simple in some ways and unbelievably difficult in others. Because if you put a guitar in front of somebody, maybe just the body, and hand them a sander, they're probably going to ruin it.
Right.
They're going to sand a hole right through the top. They're going to alter the top thickness, which totally ruins the voicing. All kinds of things where I can't automate it that very well. So what works better is to teach a method and teach a process for building that consistently.
Right.
So what we do here in our factory, as well as our factory in Tecate, is we're using a mix of very old world craftsmanship, very hands-on, like your own two hands kind of workmanship.
Right.
As well as very high-tech modern robotics and automation. It's a mix of all of the processes and the methods that enable us to get a consistently good guitar.
Right, right. Yeah, some things really stood out to me in the course of the tour. There were so many amazing craftspeople, but you mentioned the binding process, and of course the standard binding is impressive enough, but when you talk about the beveled edges, the 800, 900s, I was blown away watching the craftsman working on that. He was telling me he does like 5 a day is all he can do, or not even that many.
Yeah, which is 5 a day is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like there's some of these guitars, like one of our presentation series models, that's an incredibly difficult guitar to build. In the case of one of these guitars, using this Taylor neck, in the span of about 10 minutes, you can take out the fasteners, the holding fasteners. You remove the neck from the body, find out what spacers you have in there. Maybe you choose the next one over. It has a slightly different amount of angle machined into it. Put a new set of spacers in, reattach the neck to the body. You're good for another 30 years. So having this ability to ever so minutely dial in the neck angle exactly where we want it allows us to make a really controlled, carefully machined height for the saddle. It affects the balance of the pickup, the responsiveness out of a pickup, the responsiveness of the guitar itself.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Speaking of the pickup, we were checking out the pickup that you guys use, and it's a very different assembly. I think people think of just the strip underneath the bridge saddle. That's not what's going on there anymore, is it?
No, we're using a system we call the Expression System 2. Now, it's a piezo-based system, like a lot of the familiar under-saddle transducer pickups.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than under the saddle, where it's being squashed by about 70 pounds of downward string pressure, we put this piezo crystal on a controlled, adjustable system in a little housing behind the saddle. Right there, we can control the preload that's on the piezo crystals themselves. So we have a really highly dynamic range coming through that pickup system. As well, it captures a lot more of the natural three-dimensional motion of the guitar top itself.
Right, right.
Second part is you have to protect it from the environmental change. The inside of the guitar is left unfinished, but the outside is finished. So it helps slow down the effects of temperature and humidity. The most overlooked part of a finish is you're controlling the dampening factor of the piece of wood itself. Now, we often think of dampening and immediately say, well, that's not what I want. I want something that's totally undampening or undamped. That's not true at all, because what you're after is a musical instrument. And if you don't dampen some of the inharmonic sound that that thing would make otherwise, the result is terrible. So if you've ever tried playing a guitar, an acoustic instrument that has no finish on it, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant at all. So certain instruments like our 800 series or our 900 series, we use a very, very thin, what we call a 3.5 mil finish. It's 3.5 thousandths thick, give or take. A couple of give or take about 1/10 of a thousandth either way, which is not much.
Right.
But it's a very controlled coating to control and finish the voicing of that guitar. This silent satin finish is a little thicker than that. It's about 4.5 thousandths, give or take a couple of tenths.
Right.
Because that's the dampening factor that we liked for this guitar.
I even saw where in the finishing room, the buffing compound is collected by vacuums and reused as buffing compound again.
Yeah,
it's just
still good material.
Right, right.
You just got to reformulate it.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Thanks for hosting us here today. We really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
Always great to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you. And thank you for joining me in El Cajon, California. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater, coming to you from the Taylor Factory.
I was up there and I saw a coffin being brought downstairs. It was steep, must have been like this here. And one of those pallbearers dropped it. He dropped his side, poor thing. And, the casket fell. And it hit the stairs, of course, and it went right down and hit a parked car. And it tilted it, like there was a hill there, and it tilted it and went right down that hill also. And went really fast, and the coffin literally smashed into a pharmacy door and right up to the counter, and the casket popped open. The body fell out. Said, you have anything to stop this coffin? Don't forget to click here. Click there. Like and subscribe. Be sweet. Leave a nice comment if you want. All right.